George Bent, a Cheyenne-American interpreter, historian, Civil War soldier, and Cheyenne dog soldier, resided in Colorado. Bent, known as Homai Ike in Cheyenne, was born on July 7, 1843, at Bent's Fort, Colorado, to William Bent and his Cheyenne wife, Owl Woman. His father, William Bent, a renowned fur trader from St. Louis, Missouri, along with his brother Charles and partner Saren St. Vrain, constructed Bent's Fort. This trading post became one of the busiest in the West and held a significant role in American trade during the 1830s and 1840s. Bent's Fort extended its trade influence from the fort on the Arkansas River, south into the Staked Plains, Llano Estacado, of Texas, and north into Wyoming's Medicine Bow Mountains. William Bent employed many notable figures of the fur trade, including Kit Carson, Jim Beckworth, Old Bill Williams, Uncle Dick Wooten, Thomas Fitzpatrick, and Jim Bridger at various times. George's mother, Owl Woman, hailed from the lineage of a respected Cheyenne chief and medicine man. Following her marriage to William, he was bestowed the honor of becoming an honorary chief of the tribe. The union between William and Owl Woman resulted in 4 children: Mary, born in 1838, Robert, born in 1840, George, born in 1843, and Julia, born in 1846. Tragically, Owl Woman passed away during Julia's childbirth. In accordance with Cheyenne customs for successful men, William took Owl Woman's 2 younger sisters as secondary wives. The responsibility of raising Owl Woman's 4 children fell primarily on the youngest sister, Island. Meanwhile, the other sister, Yellow Woman, bore a son named Charles with William Bent. Charles, born in 1845, became a half-brother to Mary, Robert, George, and Julia. George Bent was brought up adhering to Cheyenne traditions and answered to his Cheyenne name, Homai Ike, signifying beaver, until he reached the age of 10. Raised amidst diverse cultures at Bent's Fort, George became proficient in several languages including English, Cheyenne, French, Spanish, Arapaho, Kiowa, and Comanche. In 1853, George and his siblings were enrolled in an Episcopal boarding school in Westport, Missouri. This school aimed to educate both Native American and white children. Colonel Albert G. Boone, the grandson of Daniel Boone and a close friend and business associate of William, was entrusted with their care. William sought an education for his children similar to that of affluent Americans. While George formed friendships with many young individuals from prosperous Southern families, he never truly felt a sense of belonging to white American society. In 1857, upon finishing his basic education, George was sent to St. Louis, Missouri, under the guardianship of Robert Campbell, a fur trader and businessman known for emancipating his slaves and supporting many children of color. While under Campbell's care, George began attending Webster College. When the Civil War erupted in 1861, George was just 17 years old. In May of that year, Union troops paraded Confederate prisoners through the streets of St. Louis, and shots were fired, leading to Union soldiers firing into the crowd and causing numerous casualties. Witnessing this tragic event, George and most of his friends from Webster College were deeply affected, prompting them to join the Confederate Army. Bent served in the Missouri State Guard, participating in the Battle of Wilson's Creek near Springfield, Missouri, on August 10, 1861, and the First Battle of Lexington near Lexington, Missouri, on September 20, 1861, both Confederate victories. Later, as a member of the 1st Missouri Cavalry Regiment, he fought at the Battle of Pea Ridge in Arkansas from March 6 to 8, 1862, which ended in a Union victory. Following the conversion of the Missouri Cavalry to infantry, Bent became attached to Landis's Battery, Missouri Light Artillery, a part of General Sterling Price's division. His artillery unit played a role in the siege and retreat from Corinth, Mississippi, where it remained behind to cover the retreat of 66,000 Confederates commanded by P.G.T. Beauregard. On August 30, 1862, Bent, along with 200 other rebels, was captured near Memphis, Tennessee. He had to pledge allegiance to the Union and was subsequently sent to Gratiot Street Military Prison in St. Louis. However, his stay in the camp was short-lived as his guardian, Robert Campbell, managed to secure George's release into the custody of his brother, Robert Bent. The 2 siblings then traveled together back to their home in Colorado. After nearly a decade away, George returned to his father's ranch in Colorado. But the hostility toward Confederate sympathizers was intense. He then joined Chief Black Kettle's Cheyenne tribe in Colorado, residing with his brother Charlie and Charlie's mother, Yellow Woman. In the region, Native Americans and white settlers had been engaged in conflict over land for many years. Black Kettle aimed to bring an end to the hostilities and initiated negotiations for peace with the United States. William Bent, George's father and an honorary Cheyenne chief, played a significant role in these peace talks. On November 29, 1864, George was present at Black Kettle's Cheyenne and Arapaho camp at Sand Creek, situated approximately 35 miles north of Lamar, Colorado. The inhabitants of the camp had started peace negotiations with the U.S. Army and thought they were under its protection. Yet Colonel John Chivington and his contingent of 700 Colorado volunteers launched an assault on the village. The military action resulted in the death of approximately 150 Indians, primarily comprised of elderly men, women, and children, with very few possessing weapons. Charles, Bent's brother, narrowly escaped death but was rescued by friends. Unfortunately, Jack Smith, another young mixed-race Cheyenne man, lost his life in the attack. The soldiers compelled George's brother Robert to guide them to the camp. George Bent was among the Native Americans who escaped upstream and sought refuge in sand pits dug in the creek bed beneath a high bank. Suffering a wound in the hip, he joined approximately 100 survivors who traveled across the plains to reach the Indian camps on the Smoky Hill River. A friend located him there and brought him back to his father's ranch, where he eventually recuperated. After this betrayal by the United States, George Bent grew extremely angry. He disowned his connections to the U.S. and aligned himself solely with the Cheyenne tribe. Soon, the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes began plotting revenge for the Sand Creek Massacre, and the Bent brothers, along with Charles's mother, Yellow Woman, joined the Dog Soldiers gang. This faction was a major force in Native American resistance to the United States. Over the next few months, they burned white villages and cut off trade routes to Denver. Although George was not an outstanding fighter, he took part in numerous raids by Dog Soldiers. In January 1865, Young with his force of 1,000 warriors won an attack on Julesburg, Colorado, resulting in the deaths of numerous townspeople and soldiers. After the attack, a significant number of Cheyenne headed north to join Lakota Chief Red Cloud at Powder River in Wyoming. They burned numerous farms in the South Platte River Valley before leaving the area. In 1865, George Bent fought alongside the Cheyenne and participated in battles such as the Battle of Mud Springs and the Battle of Rush Creek near present-day Broadwater, Nebraska. He also participated in the Battle of Platte Bridge Station, Red Buttes, fought on July 26, 1865, near present-day Casper, Wyoming, and the three-day Battle of Bourne, fought near present-day Wright, Wyoming in August. He also participated in the Battle of Pile Creek. In the summer, the U.S. Army launched the Powder River Expedition under the command of Brigadier General Patrick E. Connor heads to the Powder River country to punish the Sioux, Cheyenne, and Arapaho. The order was to exclude all men and boys over the age of 12. On September 8, 1865, the Bent family was camping with the Cheyenne at the confluence of the Big and Little Powder Rivers near present-day Broadus, Montana, when they spotted soldiers just a few miles away. It was witnessed. These units were part of the East and Center Corps of the Powder River Expedition, led by Colonel Nelson D. Cole and Brigadier General Samuel Walker, respectively. The Cheyenne, led by Roman Nose, attacked the advancing column to defend the village in what would become known as the Battle of Dry Creek, avoiding another Sand Creek massacre. Bent participated in his 27 Cheyenne war parties, but remained silent regarding revealing specific details about his involvement in the Indian Wars. In 1869, many Dog Soldiers, including George's brother Charles, lost their lives at the Battle of Summit Springs, Colorado. George then agreed to serve as an interpreter between the United States and the remaining Dog Soldiers, hoping that dialogue would foster peace between the two factions. Impressed by George's efforts, the Americans offered him a job as an interpreter for the Indian agents, overseeing the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. Bent worked in the newly formed Indian Agency under the direction of Brinton Darlington, the first American Indian agent for the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes. In 1870, the agency was based in El Reno, Oklahoma. Bent resided on the Cheyenne Arapaho Reservation near the colony and served as a U.S. government employee for most of his remaining years. Bent's familiarity with both Euro-American and Cheyenne culture made him a prominent and influential figure on the reservation. In his early years, he sought to defuse the hostilities between his two cultures. During this time, he developed a serious alcohol problem. However, he gained wealth by helping ranchers obtain grazing rights on Indian lands. Because of his influence, he lost the trust of some Cheyenne leaders and was removed as an interpreter for the Americans. However, in 1890, he became an important intermediary in persuading the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes to accept the Dawes Act's family-based land allocation plan. This allotment plan was presented to the Native Americans as a way to assimilate through the adoption of European-American farming styles, resulting in the tribes losing significant land. Former tribal common lands were allocated to member households, and remaining land was declared surplus by the government and available for sale to non-Indian parties. Many Cheyenne and Arapaho blamed Bent for the negative effects of this transition, even though this transition would not have occurred without Bent's help. In 1901, Bent was at the lowest point in his life. Although he had stopped drinking, he had lost his influence over the Cheyenne and his former wealth. He realized that the Cheyenne culture was disappearing and wanted to preserve Cheyenne history. He soon met anthropologist George Bird Grinnell. Grinnell found Bent, who spoke both Cheyenne and English, invaluable to the study of Cheyenne culture. Bent composed more than 400 letters to George Grinnell's assistant George Hyde, detailing Cheyenne history and customs. He also told Grinnell what he knew and arranged meetings with other Cheyennes to obtain further information. However, Bent felt that Grinnell had finished the book too late and began collaborating with George E. Hyde, who was deaf, nearly blind, and living a reclusive life. At Bent's urging, Hyde eventually became Grinnell's ghostwriter, and he probably wrote most of The Fighting Cheyenne, published in 1915. Grinnell later wrote Cheyenne Indians, Their History and Life, in which he paid a more generous tribute to Bent. Cheyenne culture is described in unusual detail in Grinnell's book, thanks in large part to Bent's insight and Hyde's writings. George Bent died in Washita, Oklahoma on May 19, 1918 during the 1918 influenza pandemic. He had additional wives named Kiowa Woman and Standing Out. Bent fathered a total of 6 children.